Yeah.
His whole family is stuck at home together. They're like in a five rats in a shoebox.
Yeah, that's challenging, I think. Good practice.
So, how have you been?
Yeah, I've been pretty good, I think. So, yeah, so I was listening to the session you did with Christian a few days ago. You uploaded that on YouTube about yeah, about overwhelming feelings and stuff like this. So body sensations basically, and I found that pretty interesting to listen to. Because there's also something that I can really relate to. And yeah, the last 2 weeks were pretty pretty intense. So I have a new work situation where I'm have a little bit more responsibilities, and so that triggered some stuff. But yeah, I mean, basically, what's happening for me right now is how I would describe my practice is like seeing more and more situations where I still get into like a victim's position, and then I get out of that and see that it isn't that bad actually, and um yeah, so it's more and more situations where before it was like there was a self coming up, like I am that sensation or I am that feeling. And if I then can get out of that, like this is me and this is hard and I'm the victim of this situation, then it becomes like an object and not it's not me anymore, right? And um, yeah.
That's exactly correct. You just nailed it. All right. Let me explain it to you in a more formal way. Is that when we're when we're in it, whatever it is, we won't define it yet, but when we're in it, then that means that the self and that are the same thing, or that we're stuck in it. But the quality of anapanasati is to wake up, then to see what the mind is doing, and that as we would say, aha, I see you, or like the Buddha said, aha, I see you, Mara, that means that we're now separating, we're pulling out.
Mm.
We're no longer that which is causing the problem. We're the one who observing the cause of this suffering. And
Mm.
that's a remarkable place because that place is not selfish. And because it's not selfish, it has a marvelous quality to it that we actually feel uh, free from that thing because we weren't free from it when we were it. But now we're not it, we're free from it. And
Mm.
that's the relief or the joy. And so we know that over and over and over again. We keep practicing. Oh, that stuff that comes up is merely a hindrance. It's not me. It's not who I am.
Mm.
And when we know that, then that gives us that confidence
Yeah.
that I can do this. No matter how much of that stuff comes back, it's not me. I can come out
Mm.
and see the present moment and be,
Mm.
in fact, quite joyful about it.
Yeah, yeah, and what's really like what really works great for me is I see this pattern like every time I'm like curious and a little bit playful and try out stuff with sensations that are unpleasant and are me at the time, then this is always a good recipe. So for example, yeah, breathing into it, for example, or what also works great for me is to to actually do a little bit of a noting practice with pleasant and unpleasant, so I can get away from that, because that if I don't really can recognize that pleasant and unpleasant, then this is still me, and it prevents me from actually seeing the thing that's there.
Well, that's actually, in a way, pleasant and unpleasant. Is that when we, before we could see it, we were in it and it was unpleasant.
Yeah.
But now that we see it, we have choice over it, and that we choose by getting out of it, coming back to the pleasant. And so we would note that too, the unpleasant first, and then coming out of it and know, oh wow, this is so much better.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, that's true. I often tend to only note as long as it's unpleasant, and I stop. But it's that's true, that to actually then see that it's pleasant, and yeah, to enjoy that. Yeah.
Yes, this is actually seeing that it's pleasant to be free from that is in fact the sukkah, or the satisfaction. Wow, what a relief it is to be free from that stuff. And I thought it was me all along. It's not me.
Yeah.
And it's funny that happens with many, many things as we carry the banner for it. An example, actually, one way of looking at it, anything that has a logo, that people know that logo and have feelings for that logo. That's what we mean by the banner. In the old days, armies would fly or operate under a banner, like ships. If they were in war, that the ship itself would have a flag or a banner, so that he would know who his friends are and who the enemies are. All right. So an example of that then would be a national flag.
Yeah.
And so that flag or that banner represents, I am German, or I am English, or I am an American. Or it actually, another kind of flag will define even what religion. Like there are Islamic flags, and there are jihad flags, and there are Christian flags, and political parties. There are Democrat flags and Republican flags and conservative flags, all kinds of different things like that. And so when the Buddha says, put down these banners, that means we're no longer being affiliated or tied to a country or a religion or a political party or an ideology of any kind, that we begin to relinquish even that. That when we look at it in the sense of one of the four modes of clinging, we can see, in fact, each of the four modes of clinging have these things of the weapon, which is procreation instinct. That when we say procreation, that means that we own things. That we pick up. Probably the first thing that a human being actually ever owned was a stick that was on fire at one end, and he was carrying it on the other. That was probably the first thing that a human attached to. But we normally think that it was a rock, because he uses the rock to beat out the bone's marrow. And then we put a stick on the rock and we've got an axe, and now off we go into materialism. So the next thing that we look at is that item then becomes our weapon or our tool. And so we learn to put that down, that we're no longer in a place of fear or having to defend ourselves, nor do we have to join a particular herd like the Democrats or the Republicans. We don't have to identify with another group of people who are, in fact, also being driven by their feelings, and they're all armed. That's why they've got banners, is so that they know who each other are when they go to war. So, go ahead.
So, what you're saying is to drop that instinct and instead like decide on a moment to moment basis what's the right thing to do now. Or
yes, exactly. Let Dukkha Nirodha be your guide rather than the old set of rules that we have been carrying around. about oughtas, wouldas, shouldas, couldas, fight for right, etc., like that. In fact, there's a point in the Dhammapada that says to avoid evil, to do good, and to purify the mind. With the intention word of avoid means don't go fight evil. You don't have to go win over it.
Mm-hmm.
You just simply stay out of its way.
Yeah, your impact is more positive if you just do something good instead of like fighting over or like trying to convince someone that's like so deep into something that you can't.
So if we identify with a banner, that means we identify with a group who divide themselves up saying we are this and those people are that. So it automatically creates division. So in the mind of the Dhamma dude, we don't adhere to anybody. No banner needed. And along with that, identification is no longer needed. Many times when people will ask, am I an American? The answer is, well, there is this American passport. We know it's an American passport because the word American is written right on it. But the I'm an American, no, I'm not.
Yeah. One thing that comes to mind for me is yeah, I think it's kind of the same thing with like being a meditator, right? You can also like become a meditator and then have some clinging to it, and
I am a right.
So that's one thing that for the last half year or so I was always like a little bit confused, because at the beginning I was really strict. Like I said, like, yeah, I'm gonna practice that and that much time a day, and it was kind of I think it was helpful to, in that state, get me to practice, but now I'm more and more like, so I practice every morning, and then that's just something I do like out of habit now, and I yeah, kind of look forward to, and other than that, I kind of practice whenever it comes, like.
Okay, well, we need to widen that view up. Let us begin it this way: that you begin to practice every time you can remember to practice.
Yeah.
To start opening it up all day long, every time you remember, oh, this is a Dhamma moment.
Yeah.
Okay, and that you take a deep breath, we gladden the mind, we throw out whatever it was and in the mind, and come back to this present moment. Oh, what a nice moment.
Yeah.
Doing that over and over again all day long is actually beautifully beneficial.
Yeah, I can really feel that. And but the thing that's happening for me a little bit is that, or was happening, I think now I can see that and see through it. But at first it was like, at first I was really like miserable out of like formal sits, and then like with working with you, I became more and more like the Sati moments became increasingly often and more joyful. And so that then was a period where like I was feeling pretty good most of the time, and then it was like a fear, like my meditation, like my formal sit isn't as like the difference wasn't so big anymore. And then there was like some fear at first, like am I still doing this correctly, or like some fear about this identity of practicing that and that much every day, and like, yeah, that was pretty
well, now we can see into that very easily if we identify ourselves of I am a meditator and I built up this practice, and now I'm beginning to see, wait a minute, that was only step one of a two-step process, and now that I'm waltzing into it's very much like moving from one university to another.
have a snake.
Oh, you've got a snake.
No, I see a snake there. For a there.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, you leave the snake alone. We've got a lot of snakes on this island. Don't mess with it. Okay? If the dogs want to play with the snake, that's up to them, but you stay out of it, okay? Okay? It's not your snake, right? Has it got kitty written on the snake? So it's not yours. Is it your snake? No. Well, then please don't go play with it. Is that all right? Well, you want me to go down and look at the snake? Well, I'm glad of that because I've seen snakes before. I know what they look like.
But I didn't want for a hamster downstairs.
Well, you can't do anything about where the snake goes, nor can you do anything about what the dogs do with the snake. That's out of my control. Is it out of your control? Can you do anything? Other than complain to me, what did you do? Nothing, huh? Oh, I can't do anything either. All right. Now she's telling Mom about the snake. We're in an island paradise. Snakes are here long before we were. She's seen a lot of them too. Anyway, we were talking about how to get this quality going of figuring out that we, at any moment, can stop attaching to whatever we thought we were through our banner keeping or through our identifications and all of that, and come back to this present moment where about the only thing that we can claim is human. But we can only do that when the best human part of the brain is working, which means deep breathing.
Yeah.
And so that we do over and over and over again, often, as many times as during the day. But actually, we haven't talked about this. You and I were talking about it with Willie, that Willie's on lockdown. How is it for you now? Are you employed and not working, or are you in?
Yeah, so I'm working as a software engineer, so I'm working from home for 3 weeks now. So that's I have something to do. That's pretty good. Gives some structure to the day.
I didn't know that. Neither did Willie. He's also a software engineer. We were just talking about that. All right. So the advice to Willie is the advice to you. Hey, you're on vacation. This is wonderful. This is a marvelous opportunity to practice while you work. Or if we were talking about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, it would be whistling while we're working. Okay, that you do have work, but you're there in solitude. So learn to enjoy that solitude. In fact, do what you can to incorporate whatever the work that you're doing with the Dhamma. Because that's what Willie is doing, is that he's figuring out that how he feels about the code he wrote has everything to do with Dhamma. And so we were talking about transactional messaging, and how that was used to help him find what the problem was, which was actually a wrong SQL statement. But in any case, without the error, blogging to that SQL statement saying that this thing failed, they didn't have the ability to, because their system was too complicated. They didn't do all the tracking that they needed to do.
Yeah.
So in any case, what we're pointing is that everything is an opportunity to see how we get attached. to my code or to my organization or to my political party or to my country.
Practice.
Or it's all practice.
Yeah, but you can also get attached to your practice and view yourself as a great meditator.
That too. And when we see that as an attachment, that's good. We can say, aha, I see you, Mr. Master Meditator. And there comes that pride. Yes, exactly so.
Yeah.
Because that's more painful than just enjoying the benefit of the meditation.
Yeah. It always gets you out of that, like really feeling it right now, if you have that overlay of I am this and this is how it is. And yeah.
And so that's where that attachment, or if we were clinging, any clinging requires a clinger. And so that's where the I comes from. The I comes from the fact that there is something to be clung to. But when we cling to it as an I in the sense of that banner, that identification, or that ownership, or following rules, going along to get along. All of that kind of stuff is actually quite instinctual. The herd behavior is very instinctual, just like territorial instinct is very instinctual. It's deeply buried, and it grew up when we were, way back when, 600,000 years or so ago, and over a long period of time. We now live in a society where the instincts of humanity don't fit the culture we're in. That our instincts are still much more primitive than our functioning human brain can do. And yet so many people are not using that frontal cortex. They're relying upon their instinctual ways.
Yeah. I think at first it is a big step, right? It seems like a big step because all your little fears about stuff and instincts, they seem so powerful and so scary that you don't want to mess with it. So it really takes some determination, I think, to like more
until you recognize that scariness is in fact its only product.
Yeah. But you
it was Winston Churchill, I think, said, there is nothing to fear but fear itself. And that is actually literally true.
Yeah.
When we become afraid, then we become blind.
Yeah.
And when we're fearless, we can see.
Yeah, but to recognize that, you have to a few times really see that it's true, right?
Over and over and over and over again. That's why we call it practice.
Yeah.
Just like nobody makes it as a piano player without putting in the practice.
Yeah.
And so this is where we do it, and you've got the opportunity. You've got such a marvelous time. There's nothing else for you to do. But just begin to enjoy your life. How much enjoyment can you bring to it? The answer is every time you remember to.
Yeah.
So that's what I would recommend is start allowing yourself to see that sitting meditation is only step one.
Yeah.
Or that's first grade. Never mind that you got summa cum laude or a gold star for first grade. You're in second grade now.
Yeah. So my practice has actually been in the last half year. So I did a lot of qigong. But it's actually like the teacher I'm working with there. He teaches us so it's basically anapanasati with movement.
Yes, I know. In fact, I don't think we recorded it, but he just had a long conversation with Ashley exactly that. that he is newer into it, and so I was pointing out to it, yes, that this is nothing but anapanasati with body movement, and here you are.
Yeah. So and then that has been really like helped me to always have like some. So it made me much more aware of like body sensations of like they call chi, and in this framework, and this has made it easier to stay with it for longer. So if I have a sati moment, I can then sometimes stay with that like nice feeling for like really long, because it's I really focused on that in the formal practice for some time. So yeah, that's been a pretty great thing for me, the Qigong practice.
All right, well, that gives you even a new thing to play with while you're there at home.
Mm.
Is to practice those movements.
Mm. Yeah.
Which is nothing but anapanasati. And
I mean,
becoming aware of the hands and the movement of the body is very much a part of getting to know the body with anapanasati. That's why the Buddha also talks about walking meditation, is to stay in the body. And yet most of the Westerners still have the idea that meditation or the whole practice is all about sitting.
Yeah, and it's only like here in this area.
Rather than it's the whole show.
Yeah.
And so doing those body movements while practicing sati, that's actually what it's for. Is to keep the mind quite focused. And that is actually set out right there in the Satipatthana Sutta. It's almost that you could say that they use martial arts and the katas of martial arts to give a form to what's recommended in the Satipatthana Sutta of knowing when you're reaching, to reach, and to reach slowly, and to move the fingers apart, to stretch the hand out. And to do it consciously. So now we're doing it through these katas, but everything is almost a little bit over stylized on purpose. So as to really bring out and have the mind begin to watch what the body is doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, cool.
All right. Well, I hope to hear from you again very soon. Let's go. I mean, this is a time for intense practice. You've already got all the seclusion. You don't have to pay $2,000 for a 10-day retreat. You've got it.
Yeah, but intense practice to me is like more like for I think in my stage it's more like not sitting more, but actually just staying with it more.
When I mean intense, that means never mind, start again.
Like no need to increase the intensity, but the
frequency.
The frequency, yeah.
That's what I mean by intensity, is actually intending to stay in the present moment as much as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's so misleading about the word concentration, right? Because you actually think that you have to really concentrate so hard on something, but actually it's not really that way.
No, not at all. And in fact, samadhi doesn't even mean concentration. That's a misnomer. The word samadhi in the Pali actually means gathering together the factors. Okay, so samadhi would be, in fact, gathering jhana factors together. Or in other forms, sama area samadhi of the mind is gathering the factors of the path together. Right view, right effort, right sati, and right attitude together bring the mind to a state of unity, which is actually the same as the first jhana, because you also have the jhana factors there. Okay. So this is what we actually are looking for, and yet we were all wrongly using the word concentration and think that that meant something.
Yeah.
No, we're looking here in the sense of repetitive. Or in another word, we could say is just one more step or just one more breath, just one more, only the next one. There we go. Okay. I remember one time being out on the bicycle, getting down to the point of just one more pedal, just one more, because that was in the end of a long day. Just one more pedal. Don't get off. Just one more pedal, and that gives that determination. Just one more. Let me come back and do it one more time, over and over again.
Yeah, and that actually just brings about a way better result than instead of that focusing on the result and beating yourself up, right? Yeah.
Never mind. Start again. Let's do it again. One more time. One more time. All right. So that's the way. Don't beat yourself up because you're doing a marvelous job.
Great. Thanks, Dhammarato.
That I can do it. You can do this.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right, Ferdinand. We see you later.
Yeah. See you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.